Before we tell you who we are, we need to tell you something first.
There's an animal alive right now that can regrow its heart, its spinal cord, parts of its brain.
And it is always smiling about it.
Welcome to the Superhero Review from the Fenekie Explorer Club.
Today we are talking about one of the most scientifically astonishing creatures on the entire planet. I genuinely could not sleep after I read the notes for this one.
In a good way?
In a how is this real way, which is basically the same thing.
Okay, so our animal this week is the axolotl.
Say it with me, everyone. Axolotl. I had to practice that.
I had to practice it too, for longer than I'm going to admit.
And our character this week is Axel the Forever Young, and his story is called Axel and the Vanishing Lake. This week's storybook is available at Fenekie.com, along with the narration podcast, stickers, and all of it.
But first, we need to talk about what this creature actually is, because I genuinely think most people have no idea.
Okay, so I knew the word axolotl before I read any of this. I knew it from
Minecraft,
and I thought it was basically just a cute pink thing, like a little underwater puppy.
which is sort of accurate, actually, in the most surface-level possible way.
So what is it actually?
So an axolotl is an amphibian. It's a salamander, technically, a very unusual salamander. And what makes it unusual is something called neoteny, which is this word that means it retains its juvenile features throughout its entire life.
Like it just never grows up?
Exactly, like it never grows up. So you know how most frogs start as tadpoles in the water, then they go through metamorphosis, sprout legs, lose the tail, and become land-dwelling frogs?
Yeah, classic tadpole to frog situation.
Axolotls don't do that. They stay aquatic. They keep their gills, they keep their tail, they keep basically all of their larval features their whole life. They're called the Peter Pan of the amphibian world in the scientific literature, which I love.
That is the most charming scientific nickname.
And those gills, those beautiful feathery things you see fanning out from the sides of their head, those are external gills. Most animals, if they have gills, the gills are internal, tucked away. The axolotls are right there on the outside, waving around in the water.
Like a little crown.
Like a little crown, yes. Or as we say in the storybook, like a bouquet of pink flowers.
Which is accurate. I looked at pictures for a long time.
And the smile. We have to talk about the smile.
The smile. They always look so happy.
So the smile is real, but it's not emotional. What happens is that the axolotl's bone structure and muscle arrangement naturally positions their mouth in an upward curve. So they're not smiling in the way we smile. They're just built that way. It's permanent.
That is adorable and slightly philosophical.
It means they look delighted no matter what is happening to them, which when you find out what can happen to them, makes a smile feel extra meaningful. So they typically grow to somewhere between 20 and 35 centimeters long. That's about 8 to 14 inches, so about the size of, a large ruler, maybe a little longer.
Small. I thought they were bigger somehow.
They're surprisingly small, and they walk along the bottom of the lake on 4 little legs, and they use their flat tail for swimming. So they do both, walk and swim, depending on what they need.
Tiny little quadruped just wandering around the lake bed.
Wandering and hunting, actually. They're carnivores. Worms, insect larvae, small crustaceans, even small fish sometimes.
Oh, they're little predators.
Little smiling predators.
The most cheerful hunters in the lake.
Okay, the superpower.
I've been waiting for this.
Right, so regeneration in animals is not unique to axolotls. Lots of creatures can regrow things. Starfish can regrow arms, some lizards can regrow their tails, but what axolotls can do is in a completely different category.
How different?
Okay, so an axolotl can completely regrow an entire limb, not just the outer bits, the skin and some tissue, the whole limb. The bones, the muscles, the nerves, the blood vessels, all of it, perfectly restored, and it does not scar.
There's no scar at all?
None. When a mammal, us included, gets a wound, we heal by forming a scar. Scar tissue is basically the body saying, close this up fast. And it works, but it's not the original tissue. The axolotl doesn't do that. Its cells form what's called a blastema, which is this little cluster of stem cells that essentially figures out what was lost and rebuilds it from scratch.
Like a blueprint in the cells.
Exactly like a blueprint. The cells remember what a leg is supposed to look like, and they just build it again.
That is mind-bending. So it's not just healing, it's regenerating?
It's full regeneration, and it doesn't stop at limbs. This is where it gets really wild. Axolotls have been observed regenerating portions of their heart muscle,
Their heart.
and portions of their spinal cord,
The spinal cord.
and brain tissue.
Their brain?
Yes, portions of their brain.
How are scientists not losing their minds over this?
They absolutely are. There is a huge amount of research happening right now specifically because if we can understand how the axolotl body does this, we might one day be able to apply some of those principles to human medicine. Imagine if spinal cord injuries could be healed. Imagine heart tissue regeneration in humans after a heart attack.
This tiny, smiling lake creature might change medicine.
That's not an exaggeration. That is genuinely what is driving a lot of the research.
Okay, I have goosebumps.
I had goosebumps the first time I read the papers on this too.
And the healing happens without scarring, so you can't even tell anything was ever different.
Right, the regenerated tissue matches the original perfectly. No scar, no difference in texture, no visible mark. It's not instant, it takes weeks, but when it's done completely.
Axel the Super Healer is a very appropriate name.
We chose well.
Okay, I have to ask about the colors because I've seen pictures of axolotls in so many different shades.
Oh yes, so in the wild, axolotls are typically dark-colored. Black, dark brown, speckled. But through captive breeding, there are now several color morphs, which just means naturally occurring color variations that breeders select for.
So people bred specific colors.
Over generations, yes. You get the classic wild type, which is dark and speckled. You get leucocystic, which is that pale pink with dark eyes. You get albino, which is white with red or golden eyes. You get golden albino, axanthic, melanoid, all sorts.
And the pink ones, the ones everyone knows from Minecraft, that's leucocystic?
Mostly leucocystic, yes, or variations of albino. The rosy pink ones with those feathery pink gills, that's the color morph that became the iconic look.
And Minecraft made the whole world suddenly aware of this creature.
2021, the Caves and Cliffs update. Axolotls got added to Minecraft as a mob, and suddenly hundreds of millions of kids knew what an axolotl was.
I mean, good, right? More people knowing about them is good.
Mostly good. The complicated part is that the surge in popularity also spiked demand for axolotls as pets.
And is that a problem?
For the captive ones, not really. They're bred in huge numbers in captivity, and the captive population is completely separate from the wild one. They're not taking wild animals to sell as pets.
Okay, so buying an axolotl as a pet doesn't hurt the wild ones.
The axolotls sold as pets are captive bred, so no direct harm. But there's still the messaging issue. Minecraft made kids love axolotls. The game also created a blue axolotl, which has a 1 in 1,200 chance of spawning.
1 in 1,200?
Which is a subtle but brilliant nod to how rare wild axolotls actually are. Because in reality, there are estimated to be between 50 and 1,000 wild axolotls left.
In the entire world?
In the entire world, in one lake.
50 to 1,000.
That is the current best estimate, and the lower end of that range is devastating.
Okay, the lake. Tell me about the lake.
So the axolotl's only wild habitat is Lake Xochimilco, which is, and this blows my mind, inside Mexico City, the world's largest Spanish-speaking city.
It's in a city?
In the southern part of Mexico City, yes, it's this ancient system of canals and floating gardens, the Chinampas, which date back to the Aztec era. The Chinampas are these man-made islands built up from layers of mud and vegetation. They're a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
That's beautiful. So it's culturally significant, and it's the only home for this critically endangered animal.
And it's surrounded by a city of over 20 million people, which creates a lot of pressure.
What kind of pressure?
Several kinds. First, pollution. Sewage and agricultural runoff from the surrounding urban areas has seriously degraded the water quality. Axolotls are incredibly sensitive to water quality. They breathe through their gills, and their skin absorbs what's in the water. So murky, polluted water is genuinely harmful to them.
They're like a living water quality test.
That's actually a useful way to think about it. If axolotls are thriving in a stretch of canal, the water is healthy. They're an indicator species.
And the second threat?
Invasive fish. Carp and tilapia were introduced to the lake, tilapia especially for food production, and they've been devastating. The tilapia are large, aggressive, and they eat the same food sources as axolotls. They compete for food, and they also prey on young axolotls.
So they're eating the babies?
Eating the juveniles, yes. And a tilapia can reach 45 centimeters. That's about 18 inches. So they're significantly bigger than an axolotl. It's not a fair fight.
That's really hard to hear.
It is. And the third threat is habitat loss. Mexico City expanded enormously over the last century. Canals were filled in, water sources were diverted, the lake system shrank dramatically. What was once a vast interconnected lake system is now a much smaller network of canals.
And that smaller network is their entire world.
Every square meter of it matters.
Okay, but there's hope. Tell me about the hope, because I need it.
There is real, genuine, scientifically documented hope.
Good. Give me the hope.
So several things are happening. First, there are active habitat restoration programs at Xochimilco. Scientists and conservation groups are working with Chinampa farmers to create axolotl sanctuaries within the canal system. These are sections of canal that are separated from the main channels, protected from the invasive fish, and actively cleaned and planted with native aquatic vegetation.
So protected zones just for them.
Protected zones. And captive bred axolotls are being reintroduced into these zones. And here's the really exciting part. Recent studies have shown that captive bred axolotls can survive and thrive when reintroduced to clean, protected stretches of Xochimilco. They establish themselves, they reproduce.
That's the headline right there.
It's a huge deal, because for a long time, the fear was that even if you cleaned up sections of the lake, the captive bred axolotls might not know how to live in the wild. But they can. They do.
The Chinampa farmers, what's their role in this?
The Chinampa farmers are absolutely critical. They've been tending these floating gardens for generations, and they know this water system better than anyone. When they get involved in conservation, when they understand the role axolotls play in the ecosystem as predators that help balance the food chain, they become incredible partners. Some Chinampa farmers have converted sections of their land specifically to create axolotl habitat.
Farmers as conservation heroes.
Farmers as conservation heroes, exactly. And community education programs are bringing in local kids, school children in Mexico City, teaching them about axolotls and what's at stake.
And the kids in Minecraft who love axolotls can also learn about the real ones.
That's the pipeline. You love the Minecraft axolotl, you discover the real axolotl, you learn what's at stake, you become part of the solution. The game actually put conservation information in the game. When you find an axolotl in Minecraft, there's a note about the real species.
That is actually wonderful, using the game as a teaching tool.
It's a great example of how popular culture can do real conservation work.
All right, it's quiz time, and I'm quizzing you this week.
Oh, the tables are turned. Go ahead.
Okay, question 1. True or false? An axolotl can grow back a lost arm.
Oh, that's a warm-up. Obviously true. Not just the arm, but the bones, the muscles, the nerves, the blood vessels, all perfectly restored with no scarring.
Correct. Full marks. Very confident.
I did the research myself. I should hope so.
Okay, question 2. What does the word axolotl actually mean? Where does it come from?
So axolotl comes from Nahuatl, the language of the Aztec people of Mexico, and it translates roughly to water dog or water monster, depending on the interpretation.
That's right, water dog or water monster.
Which is somehow both terrifying and adorable, which is exactly right for an animal that's a tiny, smiling carnivore.
Water monster with a permanent smile. Perfect name. Okay, last one. And this one is harder. The scientific term for why axolotls stay forever young, retaining their juvenile features throughout their adult life. What is it?
Neoteny. Neoteny. It comes from the Greek for youth and to stretch or to extend, so literally extended youth.
Yes, neoteny. 3 out of 3.
The student has become the quizmaster.
I prepared well.
You prepared very well.
Okay, if someone is listening to this right now and they want to actually help axolotls, real wild axolotls, what should they do?
A few things. First, learn and share. Every person who knows the difference between the captive axolotl population and the wild one, every person who knows that there are as few as 50 wild axolotls left in Lake Xochimilco, is a potential voice for conservation. Share this episode, share the storybook. Tell your kids, tell your friends.
Education as conservation?
It genuinely is. Second, there are organizations working directly on Xochimilco restoration. Conservation.org has work in this space. Local Mexican conservation groups are doing incredible on-the-ground habitat work. Supporting those financially, even in small ways, matters.
And for kids specifically?
For kids, the most powerful thing is connecting their love for animals to understanding habitat. It doesn't have to be axolotl specifically. Every waterway matters. Every river, lake, pond, canal. Keeping those clean, keeping litter out of drainage systems that flow to water. Those actions ripple outward.
Small actions that add up.
Like tiny healing cells. Each one does a small thing. Together, they regrow the whole limb.
I love that. That's the metaphor.
I thought about that for a while.
It shows.
The axolotl's superpower is healing. The lesson for kids is that they can be super healers too. Of habitats, of waterways, of the natural world. Each small action is a healing cell.
That's the whole thing right there. Okay, before we go, where can our listeners find everything Fenekie Explorer Club?
Everything is at Fenekie.com. The storybook Axel and the Vanishing Lake is available there. The Explorer story, our bedtime narration, follows Axel through a beautiful cinematic version of the whole story, perfect for winding down. And we've got stickers, teas, and more for the little ones who want to carry Axel around with them.
Fenekie.com, all of it there.
All of it.
If your kids love Axel and they want to know what happens next week we've got a brand new Fenekie Explorer Club animal and another superpower that will probably keep you up at night in the best possible way.
The best possible way.
Thank you so much for listening to the Superhero Review from the Fenekie Explorer Club.
Look after your waterways, everyone, and keep smiling just like Axel.
Always smiling.